Good morning. I'm your host, Ryan Stoyer. And today the webinar is the 3-year plan for authentic project-based learning. And if you are tuning in from the East Coast, it might be afternoon by just a few minutes. So good afternoon to you. But today we're going to be talking about PBL and not just scenario PBL and really not just like one-off PBL. So if that's what you're looking for, you're in the wrong place. But if you're looking for sustainable project-based learning that changes school culture, that keeps teachers in classrooms, and that can last over the long haul, you're absolutely in the right spot. We're excited about this because we've been living this out for over a decade in helping schools not just do PBL as a one-off, but how to do it as an instructional model that changes your school culture. Our idea is that every K-12 leader should adopt a 3-year PBL plan because it strengthens teacher retention, drives school culture, and stretches funding further. Those are the 3 aspects we're going to talk about today in this webinar. And I want to start with a story. We're going to tell a lot of stories today as we give you some examples of why PBL is effective in a lot of different environments. And this is Jeff Spencer on the screen here. And he started out as a PBL educator in the classroom. As a social studies teacher, he realized that social studies was not automatically engaging for 8th graders in an urban setting. So he changed what he was doing. He switched it up and it worked. And so as it worked, he moved into administration and he started to move schools in this direction. He took an urban school from a D to a B. When you do that, that's not just like skill and drill to make things work for the test. That is increasing engagement of both teachers and students. Yes, your learners are more engaged, but once your teachers are more engaged and they see that this is why they've always wanted to teach, that's when you get full movement from a D to a B. He went to another school, took him from an F to an A in a rural setting. It works in whatever setting you're at. PBL is effective at engaging, again, the adults and the kids that are in your classroom, and amazing things happen. And then the tricky part is Jeff went to a school that was already an A. So it's like, well, what are you going to do now? Like, what's the reason to bring project-based learning in? In a failing school or a D school, you should try something, right? You need to raise engagement. So you've got to change something. And project-based learning wasn't a hard sell because Jeff was an expert in that. And he knew how to bring that into schools. But what do you do when the school's already an A? What do you say? Well, what Jeff did, he came in, he was not brought in to bring project-based learning to this school. He was brought in as principal. And they were obviously a high achieving school as far as state test scores are concerned. So what he did is he just asked his teachers, like, what do you want? What do you want for your learners? You know, that idea of a portrait of a graduate. Before they leave our elementary school, what do you want them to know, say, and think? And as he led them down this path, there's asking the teachers, how have you always wanted to teach? What's the best things for your kids? The teachers found themselves moving towards project-based learning. And we started to engage them with some training, and they saw the results. They saw the employability skills. They saw the engagement of their kids. They saw their learners that had a high free and reduced lunch, a high ELL population, be able to do things that they wanted these kids to do before they left. And now they're hooked and they're in project-based learning school. And now Jeff is at a central office role in a school that has 16,000 students, over 1,000 teachers, and he's bringing engaged learning through project-based learning to this entire district. So it can be done. We just in this one example of following Jeff's career, you see it in an urban school, a rural school, in a full large district. So it can happen in really any setting. We see it all the time. So ideally, you're in one of those places, right? And if you're in the right spot, you want project-based learning, you want your learners to be engaged, you want them to have employability skills that help them after they leave our K-12 environments. And you're somewhere in that spectrum of K-12 and a rural or urban, small or large, somewhere in there, project-based learning can work at your school. I'm the CEO of Magnify Learning. We've been doing this for over a decade. We've got a ton of resources out there for you. So there's a podcast called Binge PBL for administrators. It's 20 episodes, all 15 minutes or less. So you can just binge what does PBL from the administration standpoint look like. There's also a Binge PBL for teachers if you want to use that for PD for your teachers. There's an ongoing podcast. I think we're on episode 236 right now, where it is ongoing specifically for administrators and leaders. There's a YouTube channel. We've got books out there. PBL Simplified is that book that gives you the full process of project-based learning from entry event to end product to reflection for your teachers. There's 2 chapters in there specifically for you as the leader on implementation models. So you'll want to grab that for sure. You can go to pblpress.com or you can just go to our website. If you registered for this webinar, you went to pblwebinar.com, then you got a free bonus, how to revamp your faculty meeting. If you want your classrooms to be student-centered, your faculty meetings cannot be sit and get. It's not how it works. Your teachers get sit and get, that's what they give to their students. So we show you really quickly, really immediately, how to completely flip your faculty meeting so that it's more engaged. You're giving your teachers voice and choice, and you're helping them collaborate. It's a one time where you've got all of your staff together. Don't waste it with announcements. Bring in collaboration. Get your teachers inspired and empowered. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can actually kind of backwards work this. Go to pblwebinar.com, register, and you'll automatically get the freebie. So you can go one way or the other, but it's a great way to start project-based learning and that mindset at your school. It's got to start at the adult level because your student environment will never rise above your adult environment. What we do here at Magnify Learning, we have this PBL mastery program. This is our sweet spot. We have this proprietary program. We train your leadership team and your teachers. We take you through this 3-year process so it's sustainable at the end of 3 years. And again, it works in all sorts of different environments. It will work at your school, but it's not going to work if you do a one-off. And when we say that, hey, this is effective in schools and it's changing school culture, we want to talk about what does that mean? And one of the 3 things we're talking about today is teacher retention. So when you look at teacher retention, it's a big deal in a lot of states. Like it's not like it was 10, 15 years ago where you put out a position and you had 20 people apply. Now we've got large districts that are paying well, that are putting out a spot, and they're only getting 2 or 3, which means our rural friends might have even less. So teacher retention is a really big deal. And I was talking to Kelly, who's on the screen here, and I asked her about teacher retention. How does she train her new teachers? We were having this conversation. She said, well, Ryan, we didn't have anybody leave last year. You didn't? So you had no teacher turnover. Right. What about last year, the year before? Nope. She had years without any teacher turnover. And I was like, what? So we got her on the podcast. Here's the episode number is 158. And Kelly's school is a PBL school. That's what it's designed for. That's why kids go there. That's why people teach there. And the culture is amazing. Now, you might think she's in this kind of unicorn place where teachers have to stay, but there's a larger district very close that pays more. So it's not the pay. They're likely getting paid less than they could if they went to a different district or different school. PBL is the instructional model, and that builds a culture at the student level. So it's student-centered, 100%. Kids move from passive to empowered. But what we don't understand, I think, as adults and leaders, is the power of empowering your staff, the adults in the building. When we get into teaching, it's not because we needed a gig. It's because we want to change kids' lives, right? We want to change the world through education. We believe education is that best tool, right? When we talk to teachers, they say we want to have light bulb moments. We want to see, that kid that turns around because there's one particular, PBL unit or project. We want to see our learners have opportunities they wouldn't have before, right? And your staff is the same way. They have that same story, right? My story is I was an engineer at a Fortune 50 company when I first graduated from Purdue. And I did that for years and I was really good at it. But then I realized that some of my favorite days were when we went to go help kids at United Way. We go to this after school program and go interact with kids. It's like, I love this. So left that to go teach 8th grade English at an urban school. And I didn't go there because I wanted to go through curriculum. I went there because I wanted to save the world, right? And I thought this is how you did it. And I taught traditionally at first because that's what I knew. And I watched kids fail miserably. I had a kid that dropped out of high school his first semester of his freshman year. And I was like, is that even legal? I didn't even know that was legal. I didn't know you could do that. So I was like, this isn't why I'm here. And then project-based learning came along. And in the first year of implementation, we had a school within a school, an urban middle school, had 25% of the kids demographically balanced. We had a 1.5% higher attendance rate. With 25% of the kids, we had 8% of the discipline. And in an F school, we would have been a B on the standardized tests. So essentially, kids were coming to school and generally doing what they're supposed to be doing. Now, do you think that the teachers were fired up? Yes, our teachers were fired up. Like, that's why we get into teaching. And that led me to start Magnify Learning, right? In a very grassroots fashion. We were teachers teaching teachers. were just fired up. We saw the power of project-based learning and how it changed lives, changed schools, changed communities. And your staff is the same way. They want that. They want to be empowered. They want to stay. They want to have that reason to stay. And what Kelly found is that she literally has no turnover in her school because of the culture that's there. It's reflective. Teachers have input. They have autonomy. They have mastery. They have purpose, right? Those Daniel Pink book Drive, those 3 things of why we stay. They had purpose. This is why they've always wanted to teach. They have autonomy to lead their classroom in amazing ways. And purpose and mastery. They were well-trained teachers in project-based learning. So they have this niche thing that they can do, and they stay. Right? They stay. You think about that from a cost perspective, from a district side, or just a headache perspective from a principal, or just the time it takes to train a new hire. Teacher retention is an amazing bullet point that we see in project-based learning. Teachers stay, and they just get better, right? We get better over time. So if that's a problem that you're trying to solve, we'd love to talk to you about that. If you go to callmagnify.com, we'd love to talk to you specifically about your custom situation and see what teacher retention can look like when you implement project-based learning. The second piece that we want to talk about when it comes to project-based learning, when it's authentic, it's real world, you've got employability skills built in, kids are solving real problems, not scenarios, not a teachers pay teachers unit, like you're really involved in this and you're changing school culture, is this idea of skills training over curriculum. I think it's a big deal. And this is all going to tie into school culture. This is our school culture bullet point. But it's such a big idea here, is that your skills training starts to move the mindset of teachers from this traditional passive, I just put things out there and kids pick them up or they don't, to this empowered portion that we talk about in Kelly's school, where they have the autonomy and the purpose to really teach out loud and to move their classroom in a passionate way. And curriculum kind of does the opposite of that. Curriculum, it can bring you to compliance and can get your teachers to be passive, and then your learners are then passive. And I'm not saying you're not going to have any curriculum, and we can move curriculum into project-based learning. But when we rely solely on curriculum to change the world of our learners, it hasn't worked for over 100 years. And I don't think today's the day, because here's what happens. If you look at the innovation curve on the screen, and Simon Sinek talks about this a lot, it relates so closely to your staff, it's a little scary. You could take this graphic on the screen and just put your staff's name in here, and I can guarantee it. We do it with schools. The percentages are almost exact of what your innovators are, your early and late majority. And when you look at curriculum, your innovators and early adopters in the front part of this innovation curve, they're going to take that curriculum and bounce off of it and bring other things in. They're not going to even use the whole thing. Your early majority will use most of it. Your late majority is going to do it exactly like it says, 2, 3, page 4, page 5. And then your laggards are only going to do the parts that they know how to do, that were in the last curriculum. So in every one of those realms, you're not using the curriculum fully, and you're really building out passivity in your staff and then passivity into your learners. Now, if you go into a skills-based training or skills-based environment, it's a whole different idea, because now you're building mindset, you're building skills. So if you think about those 3 pieces of engagement from Daniel Pink's book Drive, you've got autonomy, you've got purpose, but mastery. Curriculum's not building mastery, it's covering up. If you start building the skills of your staff, now mastery goes up, and so does their engagement, right? So does their drive to do amazing things. They want to follow your lead. Now this slide could change your world. Are you ready? Because if you get it, you've watched all the Simon Sinek videos, you've read his books, you've liked and subscribed to all of his stuff like I have. I've been talking about Simon Sinek's golden circle for over a decade now. And this is the portion that we've been talking about before, but you may have missed it. I had missed it. At least as far as the wording, it's crossing the chasm. Look on the screen between early adopters and early majority. That's the chasm. And there's this great book out there called Crossing the Chasm. And it's really talking about the innovation curve within technology, but it relates absolutely to the change process and how humans work. And if you've tried this initiative before, you've seen that 10, 13% of your staff will jump on board and run with it. And you're like, this is going pretty well. Everybody else just doesn't get it, I wish they did. I wish they would get it. But what's happening is you're just getting the innovators and early adopters on board. That's not hard. Anything new, they'll jump on and they'll run with it and they're going to make it work. The hard part, our work as leaders, is to cross the chasm. How do we go from early adopters to early majority? The early adopters and innovators, they just need an idea, a training, and they'll go make whatever they need to, the group contracts, the rubrics. They'll make it all work. Your early majority and late majority, they're not there to make those things. Now, if you have the tools created, they'll use them. If they see it working with innovators and early adopters, they'll dip their toe in. They're still not 100% in. But once it starts working and once you have the tools ready, now your early majority will jump in. You need to spend a ton of time as a leader on that chasm portion. If you're bringing in a change process to your school, that's where you need to focus the majority of your effort. How do you get from your innovators and early adopters to your early majority to jump on board? And as you think through that, you've probably never thought about it that way. You've got the skill set to do this, but that chasm is what's holding you back. Because once you get the early majority, now the late majority will jump in, right? Because you've got the structures, the processes are set up, you've got the wins, the testimonials. They're like, yeah, this could work, I'll do it. And your laggards, you'll move them along, right? They have to be nudged either way. But if you can cross the chasm to then make it normal to do project-based learning, to have student-centered classrooms, now you have a school culture that's moving things along, not just this prototype or this initiative, this thing you're trying out, this thing that they do because they put in extra time and extra work and they're so amazing, your innovators, early adopters. Now you've got something that everybody does in some form. And if you're doing skill set and mindset training, your whole staff can get elevated. Whereas curriculum, they're just going to jump off in whatever direction they want to. So skills training over curriculum. This is a PBL model school down in Florida. Babcock Ranch Neighborhood School is in Babcock Ranch, which is the country's first fully solar-powered city. So they've been through several hurricanes, and the school does just fine because they're made for that. In fact, their auditorium is a hurricane shelter for the town. So it's a super innovative place. You can see the building looks neat. Their learners are going to NASA. They had some learners that went to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and participated in that process. When you're going through this school, the school culture is that we do things that are amazing. That's the bar, right? The default bar is amazing because they've got not just early adopters and innovators, their early and late majority have the skill set training and mindset training around project-based learning and student-centered culture. So it permeates the entire culture because the staff permeates it. So if school culture is a place that you want to really stick your flag in, let us know. Give us a call. So you can set up a call at callmagnify.com and we'll have that conversation with you. Where is your school culture right now? Where would you like it to be? And what are the steps? What we found is this whole process has to be customized. If there's no cookie cutter direction to give to you, we want to see where are you at, where do you want to go, and how do we customize that so it fits your specific school, your specific leadership style. The third bullet point we're going to talk about today is investment over cost. Cost being something you just pay over and over again. Investment being you pay in this one time, and then it has an investment or return on investment over time. It continually pays back, right? If you put money into the stock market, you're getting, maybe you buy a stock that gives a dividend. So that dividend keeps coming back. You might buy it one time, but the dividend comes each quarter or each year. So that's what we want to look at. This idea of long-term principalship, you as the leader, we want you to be there a really long time. Now, the statistics say that you're likely going to move on. And that's okay. But what are the systems and processes that you have in place so you have that return on investment when you're gone? You don't want it to be, wow, that was a rock star 3 years while you were there, and you leave and everything falls apart. That's not the legacy you want. You want to have a legacy of building amazing schools that last after you move on. Because it's okay to move on, right? You're going to have some progression. Or maybe you'll be like Bobby, who's been there for over a decade, and he's the mayor of his town. and he knows how that middle school works, and it's amazing. However you want to do that. Either way, you want to look at it with long-term return on investment. So how do you look at the cost of a new initiative, right? Is it a cost or is it an investment? You don't want to just buy, if you buy a TV, that's a cost. It does not give you a return on investment. You buy stocks, it can give you a return on investment over time. This is not financial advice. But I want you to see the idea of when you're spending your title dollars or a grant dollar, maybe you've got a grant for 5 years. Well, what happens on year 6? If you're just buying, then you have to give up on your initiative in year 6, then you had a cost, right? But how do you make that an investment where you invest for 3 to 5 years so that it comes to year 6, you've got coaches in place, you've got processes in place, you have systems in place, so that come year 6, those things are moving and it's just a part of what you do. That's what we want to look at it as an investment. That's what the PBL Mastery Program is all about. And we're getting some questions in the chat, and we'll have a Q&A section at the end. So keep putting your questions into the chat, and then we'll address each one as we go. PBL Mastery Program. So our mission is to provide active, hands-on, project-based learning professional development for leadership teams and classroom teachers. That's our sweet spot. That's our niche in the project-based learning world. So that's what creates the investment over time. We want to make sure that we've magnified the year-round with year-round coaching. We want to transform schools through project-based learning. And that's really how you do it, is training your leadership team and your teachers at the same time. And it's a 3-year process. So you've got this foundational year where your leadership team is going to start to create structures, processes, core values, and your teachers are going to go through a PBL jumpstart, right? They're going to learn they're going to build out their first PBL unit. They're going to start learning the mindset, the protocols. They're going to present their PBL unit, right? All in 3 days. And then you're both going to get coaching throughout the rest of that year. So every year there's a training for leadership, there's a training for teachers, and there's coaching throughout. Because we know if there's not coaching, that things don't last. It's like a 20% success rate if you don't have coaching, which is not a good sign. Now, if you flip that, what's the corollary is that you have an 80% success rate if you add coaching, right? So we add coaching to everything we do for the leadership team as you're implementing and creating that culture, and teachers as they're implementing in the classroom. We do that for 3 years. So when you look at investment versus cost, we're looking at a 3-year investment. Right? So you're going to invest in year 1, implementation, 2, you're going to grow that, and 3, you're really looking at sustainability. So in year 3, the leadership team is going through sustainability days. What are the structures, the systems, the processes that allow project-based learning to live on beyond any one person? If the principal moves on, if a coach moves on, if a lead teacher moves on, will this continue? Right? That's what we're looking at with sustainability days. At the same time, in year 3, your teachers are going through PBL certification. As they get certified, you now have teachers that can teach, that can train your new hires. So if you do have turnover, you have somebody that can train your new hires, somebody that's training and leading your professional development. And they're using all of our resources to do that. So the same resources we have in a PBL Jumpstart, your PBL certified teachers are using those to train your new hires. So when you get to year 4, you're fully sustainable. Isn't that amazing? We think that's amazing. We think that's investment versus cost. You invest for 3 years, and then that return on investment is coming to you of years 4, 5, 6, 7. You have internal innovation, you have the reflective processes, and you've got the trained teachers and coaches to continue the work well beyond, again, 4, 5, and 6 years without really deep training from us. Our partnership changes. It's more of, hey, how can we refer people to you to go walk through your model school to see the amazing work that you're doing? We want to share that with the rest of the country. And when you do that, something really neat happens. Your students start to ask, why are those people touring our school? And your teachers get to honestly say, well, because we're doing amazing things. And the students sit up a little straighter, and the teachers are excited to say that. And it really starts to solidify your culture. As a leader, you're really building a legacy, because even if you move on to central office or another position, that culture is there to stay. Let me address this question right here, actually. How does this work in a large district? Because that's a really good question. Some of the examples I gave you were maybe smaller schools, or they were just schools, not districts. The first one I gave you, a Perry Township, that was a larger district, so 16,000 kids. What that looks like is each school is going through design days, these leadership team trainings. Their teachers are getting PBL Jumpstart, so they're getting trained in classroom practice. And you're doing that with each school. And the key that we see in district level implementation is that we are customizing each of those implementation models for each school. So we're not saying, hey, every school in your district has to do PBL wall to wall. We're saying, where do you want to start? You might have a school. Maybe we've been working with you for a couple of years and you've got a school that's going PBL wall to wall. That's their instructional model. You might have another school that says, well, we'd like to start with 2 teachers per grade level. Great. Or maybe it's a larger high school and say, well, we want to start with the science department. Because maybe if you're in Indiana, for instance, then that's part of one of the graduate pathways is having project-based learning. So they put it in the science department. So every kid goes through a general science class and gets project-based learning, right? So you can customize the implementation model. So when you're bringing project-based learning into these different schools of a large district, it's not just boom, everybody's doing PBL from day 1 to day 184. There's a customized implementation plan. But we all have these core values of employability skills, collaboration, communication, student-centered classrooms, right? We're going to bring voice and choice in. We're all going to do that in some framework, right? But it's going to be customized by school. So that's a great question. That's what we think it looks like in a larger district. There's obviously more to that conversation, but it's really a customized implementation plan. And if you'd like, you can email us to get these slides to get all the detailed portions. But when you look at the PBL Mastery Program, it's years 4 is what we get really excited about. When we call you up, because we're having this conversation, hey, what does next year look like for you guys? We already know because we're in your schools coaching you. But what do you say? You say, you know what? We've got our PBL coach. We've got, a certified teacher in every grade level. Like, I think we're good. I don't think we need a jump start this year. Or we don't need an advance. We don't need a certification. We're good. Really? That's awesome. Like, that's where we want to get schools too. We want you to have the investment in the first 3 years, and year 4, you're on your own. Now, some schools might take longer. Like, we're happy to work with schools, of course, but that's really, and that's the logos you see on the screen are just some of the schools that called us up this year and said, hey, we got it. And we're like, we agree with you. Like, we agree that your PBL certified coach is amazing. And if she has our resources, that she can train people, that your certified teachers are creating a culture that's amazing for learners. We agree with you. So let's continue to partner, and we'll send people to you as a PBL model school. That's when things get exciting. And actually, that chat question right there, another good spot to put this, because I just kind of mentioned it. Where does a district coach fit into PBL Mastery Program? We love to see a district PBL coach. Like Calvert County that you see on the screen, they had a PBL district coach from the very beginning. So we actually didn't coach their teachers. We were coaching the coach to coach the teachers, which hopefully doesn't sound too complicated, but it's amazing when you start to think about it, the pros and cons. If we're coaching the coach, she is then coaching the teachers. She knows the nuances of the district. She knows the nuances of different schools. She knows the nuances of all the different initiatives that are coming through. So she's taking PBL and everything we're teaching her, taking it through the lens of the district, and then providing training. It is massively successful, especially when you get to year 4, that you have a PBL district coach or school coach that stays connected to us. We've got a coaching cadre nationally, and that district coach stays connected to our coaching cadre and is keeping up with best practices, asking great questions when there's roadblocks, sharing wins. So a district coach is an excellent move when you're looking at PBL sustainability. I did mention PBL model schools as I was discussing this process as well. So we've got a process to take schools from foundational PBL implementation all the way up to a PBL model school. We've got a pretty intricate rubric for that. So when you go to one of our PBL model schools, we guarantee you that they're operating at a high level. So we've got schools at every one of these levels, but the ones that get to level 4, those are ones where we send you to go and do design days, to start your leadership training, or to go do a tour. Those are the places that where you can go and see that PBL is doing amazing things. And we can put you on that track from the very beginning. And it helps you as the leader. Because if you remember at the very beginning, one of the first slides, if Jeff's leading an A school, what's the impetus for change? Like, why are we changing anything? Like, well, the rubric and this process on the PBL model school continuum gives you a process like, hey guys, we're here, we're at 2, we could get to 3. Here are some of the things that we need to do. And that starts to give your teachers this vision for something more and gives you a reason to lead them down the next path. So when we look at investment over cost, how can you get this 3-year investment? So maybe you've got title dollars, maybe you've got grant dollars, and you're not going to have them forever. You want to invest in something that's going to give you return on investment after that investment, right? After those first 3 years of investment, how does it keep going? So our PBL model school in Columbus, Indiana is a great example. They've invested at the very beginning, and they have this internal innovation. They have the processes, the structure, the culture. They've got, it's a great visit, actually. I'd love to hold your design days there, because even just the teacher workroom, it's all one big room with one big long table down the middle where they can all collaborate during their prep time. And then there's little cubicles off the side if they need to go grade papers or do something individually. But it's just built for collaboration at the staff level. And then as you walk around the school, you notice that there's these little collaborators where students can start to collaborate, and glass walls and dry erase walls all over the place. So those are built for collaboration and innovation. So even when they had their founding principal retired, they had this awesome succession plan, which we are super geeky about here, by the way, because the culture and the processes were already there. The new principal could step right in and keep things going. And that is just an amazing example of that investment over cost, right? So they made an early investment and dove in and understood the protocols, the processes that keep those things going. So when you go visit schools, which is one of my first suggestions as you're talking about project-based learning, is go visit a high quality project-based learning school. Those are the things you want to look for. Like, how long have they been doing this? Ask them some of the beginning questions. And even if they've been, like, when you go to CSA New Tech here, there aren't a whole lot of founding teachers there. You say, well, that's kind of a bummer, except that it's not. It shows that it's working, right? It shows that the structures, the innovations keep things going, that you bring new teachers in, and the quality of the school culture continues. Super exciting. So if you want to talk about that investment versus cost, happy to have that conversation. Go to callmagnify.com. And if you've got some grant dollars that you're looking to stretch, which you should always be looking to stretch, right? How do you use those best? Is you want to have something after the grant is over, right? And a lot of times that's actually in the grant proposal, is how will you continue this work after the grant's done? And this explanation of investing in these 3 years of when you're done, you've got PBL certified teachers, you've got a PBL certified coach, you've got structures and processes that keep the innovation and reflection going. Those are the things you want to be able to put in your grant proposal. And those are the things that we see and get really excited about. So you've had this webinar where we talked about teacher retention going up with project-based learning, like teachers just not leaving because they're teaching the way they've always wanted to teach. We talked about building a school culture with skills and mindset training. And we talked about stretching those title dollars or those grant dollars. So it's truly an investment and not just a cost. If you want to jump in with us, we'd be happy to do that. We take on new school partners every year. In the fall, we can actually start with your design days because we hold those during a school day. We can do them in the spring as well. So don't wait until May to call us, because then it's harder to get your leadership team trained, right? So we want to train your leadership team during the school year and then your teachers over the summer. And we can train both over the summer, but that's ideal. We really want you to get you into one of our PBL model schools so that your team can feel the difference. You might understand project-based learning and get that it works, but you need your team to be on board and to feel it and be like, yes, this is what I want. So we can schedule those anytime during the year. So reach out. Again, callmagnify.com. And so whether you're a school or a district, we'd love to start that conversation. All right, so we've got a little bit of time for Q&A, although I think I fit them all in during the workshop. So I think we're solid. So again, if you didn't get the bonus of how to redo your faculty meeting, the one-page playbook to winning your faculty meeting, because you're watching this off of YouTube Live, then go to pblwebinar.com. As soon as you register, you get the free bonus. If you registered at pblwebinar.com and didn't get it, let us know. We'll make sure you get it because it's a great resource to start your PBL journey. That's your next steps, folks. Go to callmagnify.com, and we just love to have a conversation with you, right? See where are you at? Where would you want to go? We've got a ton of resources that you can get YouTube videos, podcasts. We have a ton of free stuff well into our PBL mastery program where you can be doing PBL at a really high level within 3 years, and you can be doing it on your own after that. It's super exciting stuff. It changes schools. It changes lives. Go out and lead inspired.